darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again.
What's up, man? What the fuck? Dude, like, come on, be real.
You came to get a drink, man, for boys.
Fucking drink. Who are you, bro? Yo, dog.
You know, I'm starting to think that Ellie learned how to play the guitar in The Last of Us Part 2 so she could do a cover of Johnny Cash's Hurt in honor of her creator, Neil Druckmann. Because, oof, that was brutal. Oof! Does that showcase the reality of the situation, of Neil Druckmann's attempt to penetrate Hollywood, Neil Druckmann's attempt to be taken seriously by the film industry, the video games industry attempt at getting itself taken seriously by these parasites that you honestly don't want respect from to begin with, right? Neil Druckmann is that guy who's hanging around the popular kids table. He's desperate to get noticed. He's desperate to get attention. He's desperate to be taken seriously. Like, he thinks he's amazing. He thinks he deserves to be recognized. He thinks he deserves to be considered as an auteur, someone who is a serious filmmaker and storyteller. You know, one of the best creators in the industry, and the video game industry has bent over backwards to make it happen. You know, game awards that he didn't deserve. Positive recognition among game journalism. You know, damage control from game journalists, right? You know, like, it's crazy the amount, the attempts that the industry has made over the past couple of years to paint The Last of Us Part 2 as a misunderstood masterpiece, right? If you haven't been paying attention, Naughty Dog and Sony shills have spent the past couple of years trying to gaslight people into thinking The Last of Us Part 2 was good, right? Similar to how they're defending Spider-Man 2 and God of War Ragnarok now. But The Last of Us was so infamously terrible that a lot of people will never accept the idea that The Last of Us might be a misunderstood masterpiece, right? Like, it's a game that killed the idea that Naughty Dog was a top-tier studio for a lot of people. And as a result of that, there will be no recovery from this. And what's worse, I think, is that because of its nature, because of the video game's relationship to the video game industry, Neil Druckmann is not going to be taken seriously, right? So what happened here? What exactly are we looking at? Well, Neil Druckmann showed up at the Golden Globes in order to, because The Last of Us TV show came out last year, right? And the narrative for that show, something that they were perpetuating as late as the Game Awards season, was that this was a top-tier show. This is one of the best game adaptations ever made. This was like an amazing thing. This was a big deal, right? And of course that wasn't true, right? You know, in 2024, the only thing anybody remembers about The Last of Us Part 2 was episode 3 with, like, where they retconned some of the characters into being gay. Like, when you look back on it, like, when you look back on The Last of Us and its reception, like, obviously the people who were, like, hyped for that, who were talking about that, who were, like, thought it was a great show, were people who don't play video games, right? People who don't know anything about, like, the IP or video games in general, right? Like, it seems like the people who consume The Last of Us HBO are the same kind of people who will consume the House of Dragons or whatever else that comes out. You know, complete troglodyte dipshits who will consume anything as long as it's fresh, new, and exciting. But the thing about that kind of consumption is that when it comes time for an award season, when it comes time to look back and like remember what watching this show was like, nobody really cares. When it comes to the actual film industry, when it comes to actual serious film discussion and celebration of the medium, nobody really cares. And the Golden Globes really, really reflected that, right? Neil Druckmann goes out, he's alongside celebrities. He's placed among these people, right? He's supposed to be like a hotshot now. He's supposed to have made it, right? He supposedly directed one of like the biggest shows of last year, right? Something that did really well on HBO. Like this is supposedly a big deal, right? He goes up there, to be photographed, and not a single person takes his photo, right? You can watch this, right? This isn't something I'm like making up, but like Neil Druckmann goes up there and he's not recognized, right? Nobody takes his picture. Nobody thinks to themselves that like, oh, maybe this guy will be famous 5, 10 years from now. Nobody cares, right? Like I think in Hollywood, Neil Druckmann might be more hated than a lot of people might understand, right? Because I imagine we might be seeing the point where a lot of people in like the film industry are getting frustrated with these video game films doing as well as they are and being as popular as they are, right? The Super Mario Bros. Movie was also disregarded, right? A lot of people really hated that, but like in that case, the Mario movie was that's kind of my point, though, right? The film industry isn't something that you should be looking for acceptance from, right? You should be doing good work in your own sphere and, like, just not trying to be famous, but trying to put out good, interesting work that your audience enjoys, right? But for people like Druckmann, that isn't what they're looking for, right? Druckmann is interested in being famous. He's interested in being well regarded. He's interested in being popular, right? He's not interested in actually doing something unique, interesting, or like insightful, right? He's interested in being praised. He's interested in becoming famous, right? And when you just look at his face during the situation, when you look at what's going on at the Golden Globes, when you look at how he reacts to like the reception, to how The Last of Us was received, like you see someone that was got his position through nepotism, right? Who got to where he is, controlling Naughty Dog, controlling this major Sony subsidiary through nepotism, who was expecting like him to put out like this major juggernaut hit, only to run this studio into the ground in a matter of years, right? Like it's crazy looking at the state of Naughty Dog right now, while the game journalists kind of cheer on the studios, the studio from the sidelines, right? If you listen to the game journalists, like if you look into like listen to the sycophants, like Naughty Dog hasn't been doing anything wrong, right? Naughty Dog is doing better than ever, but in a reality, like games are getting canceled, you know. Um, the second season of the show is going to be a disaster, right? The first season of the show wasn't nearly as big of a deal to begin with, right? What are they producing outside of the Last of Us content, right? The IP has been coasting off of the success of the Last of Us for the past decade, but now it's becoming apparent that like people are getting burned out on it. The only people who are like still talking about The Last of Us are people who are easily taken in by positive coverage by game journalists, right? Like if you look at The Last of Us objectively as an IP, like it's not all that successful. It's not all that innovative. It's not all that interesting. And that goes for the original as well. Right. I keep seeing people trying to say that like the original was something special and that like Neil Druckmann had like he had a minor part in creating that IP and that like he it went off the rails because of him. No, it's always been bad. Like people need to stop gaslighting themselves in this regard. Like you were tricked. Okay. The Last of Us was never good, right? Nobody cares about this IP, but Sony fanboys and shills have been spending the past decade trying to gaslight you into thinking this, and its sequel are one of the best game ever made, when in reality, nobody actually cares.